Everybody, welcome to Snow Talk. Brian Good here. Ryan Hoke's actually over here to my left. I'll turn the camera around and say hi, Ryan.
Hello, everybody.
He is working on some more cool graphics you guys are going to see as we head into more of the winter season, so stay tuned for more on that. He's a smart guy. I am not that smart. So all power to Ryan. All right. Well, we are talking about the system, obviously, for tomorrow. We'll talk about Thanksgiving week, and then we'll kind of give you an update on how things are looking toward the beginning of December. But let me start off right off the bat. There are no signs of anything significant coming our way over the next 14 days. Let's get that right out of the way. Here's the latest on our monitoring board on Snow Talk. 2 items of interest, one being tomorrow. Again, minor event. And then right after Thanksgiving, I've put that back on the board again, and I'll explain why here in a second. First off, let's cover the first event. And here it is. It's already produced 13 inches of snow near Sioux Falls in South Dakota already today. A very heavy band of snow, and it's going to arc itself right through Chicago. It may even wrap itself up to impact the northern suburbs of Indianapolis by tomorrow morning, the way it's looking now. But I would say Lake Michigan, southern Michigan itself, Chicagoland, certainly the first measurable snow of the season, and could be several inches in spots. Now, the high clouds from this taking a little longer to get in here than expected. I thought they would be in here by at least noon. They're just now filtering in. I've seen some pictures you guys are sending in of some cool effects of the ice crystals creating some of those lovely little halos in the sky around the sun. So we are seeing the high clouds stream in, and that will continue to be the case for the rest of the day for today. The alerts that are out, winter storm warnings in the pink there, you see them all the way through Chicago, and then winter storm watches and advisories kind of surround that, again, well, to our north. So let's take you through a couple of the short-term models. First off, let's get you through the RPM. For tonight, you see the high clouds stream in. Tomorrow morning, we're at, according to this model, 37. It brings the rain band in around 1:30, 2 o'clock tomorrow. At that point, we're at 50 degrees. 40s off to the north and west. Now, one thing I've noticed in the RPM that's been fairly consistent actually on the RPM is that it takes a while to get the colder air to work its way in, until at least sunset, if not longer. So that means a lot of the moisture here is wasted on the warmth of the system. And then by the time we get cold enough to produce snow, we don't have a whole lot of moisture to work with. So the RPM is not that excited at all about snow flurries, although I still think it's possible, and I'll explain why that is in a second. But it does show the cold air Sunday morning into the 20s, and then don't expect it to warm much, only 30s for Sunday afternoon. All right, here's the NAM model. Here we go. Starting in the morning, similar temperature. By the time the rain band moves in, it is slower with the rain band, by the way, but no, it's not as warm ahead of the system. It generally is talking about upper 40s, perhaps, starting with rain, and then it changes over by after sunset. Notice there's not as much. For watching yesterday, we had much more of the white showing up, so it had much more moisture to work with. Saturday evening, there's not as much showing up as well, so I'm seeing a trend here where the temperature drop is still expected, but may not be as rapid as first expect the way it's looking now, and that will affect the changeover process. But still, it will get cold enough to support snowflakes as the night goes on, and it's going to be cold as we get into Sunday morning as well. In fact, it's got 21 showing up in a few places, so some upper teens. If we clear out and calm the winds down, teens are possible. I think we have a better chance to have a clear sky and calm winds Monday morning. That's why I think Monday morning more than likely will be the coldest morning, especially for the city of Louisville. Okay, so here's the reason why I think we still have a chance for snowflakes. Here is the NAM high-res sounding. Again, here's the ground level. Way up here, here's where all the airplanes fly and everything. All right. So, red line again, temperature. Green line is the moisture. The closer they are together, the more saturated you are. The further way apart, the drier you are in the atmosphere. This is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Here is your freezing line. Your rain snow line that we talk about. It's a 0 degree line. Goes right up through there. Anything right of that falls through there is going to be melting. Anything to the left of it is going to be frozen. And that's crucial because by looking at this sounding at 3 in the afternoon, we have quite a bit of the atmosphere that is to the right of 0. So that is rain. So good job on the NAM. It's got that figured out really well. Then we get into 7 o'clock at night. Now at this point, we've got very little moisture. In fact, most of it's now already getting into the 0 degree column, and there is still some saturation in the lower levels. Now we dry out aloft, but there's still some moisture around. So I think at 7 o'clock is when we start to see the transition to snowflakes around the area. But again, there is some dry air at the lower levels of the atmosphere, so it's not going to be heavy snow by any stretch. In fact, it's going to be very, very light snow if it falls. And then as we head into later on in the evening, this is closer to midnight. You see how it's picking up the blue dot? It is picking up on the idea that still some low-level moisture around, that a few snowflakes may fly through the air. Snow flurries that we're talking about. But again, see how we are still pretty dry right at the surface level? That's going to limit how impressive that will be. But hopefully enough to put you in that festive mood. I mean, it's going to be that cold Saturday night. You might as well have flakes falling through the air. And don't waste it all entirely. But I think we have a good chance to see our first flakes of the season. And I think we have our first chance to get a trace of snow measured at the airport. So for snow lovers, it's exciting. For people that don't think snow is that big of a deal, or like laughing at us right now, like, are you really serious? Are you really discussing flurries? Yes, we are. But that's how nerdy we are. All right, but here's the latest on the computer models. And you notice only one now, the GFS, even points out any idea of anything as far as a trace. The rest of the models really have backed away from that idea. All right, so we get rid of that system. We've got the cold air. Now let's talk about Thanksgiving week. What you're seeing is temperatures, and then the green is going to be the moisture. Our storm in question, we're watching for Thanksgiving, is developing. See the rain breaking out, and some of that could be snow, by the way. This model is not able to differentiate rain and snow, so it just shows green in general. But here we go as we head into Tuesday. Busiest travel day of the year, Wednesday. We are still fairly cool. Look at the little wedge there on the Carolinas. So really chilly for those heading to the Carolinas and Smoky Mountains. That cold air being wedged, very classic sign there. A lot of warming taking place in the southern plains, but if you're traveling on Wednesday, the weather looks really quiet over a good chunk of the east. The only problems look to be in the Rockies in the west, where the storm's developing. That's where it's going to be a bumpy ride if you're flying. Then we head into Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving Day, we really begin to see the warm air push in around 60 or so, but it looks dry. At this point, the main core of the moisture will be found to our west in the plains, and this will be all snow. Across the Rockies and the foothills there. And then as we head into Friday, the shopping day, that is the day when we start to see the rain build in. Notice this area of low pressure right here into the Atlantic, by the way. Interesting feature there. But notice we've got the rain band on us for you shoppers. Now, the Euro's coming in a little bit slower with this, by the way. It's coming in more to the west. But we'll go with the GFS idea for right now, that rain increasing as we head into Friday. If you're going to be out shopping. And here's where I think things get a little interesting. This is the second item on the monitoring board, as I think as the system gets stuck, it really can't really get out of the East Coast quick enough. We're getting ourselves into a very slow, blocky pattern as we into Thanksgiving weekend. There's a lot to the east here keeping this front from going east. And then we also have the core of the cold air in the Rockies that's kind of blocked as well. So not much is moving by the time we do Thanksgiving weekend. But I do think we'll have enough cold air that'll seep in on the back side of this front, because if this front does get stalled out, it may put it in line for this rain to end as snow. Nothing heavy the way it's looking, just some snow showers maybe on Sunday night, Thanksgiving weekend. We'll see how it plays out. But it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on this cold air and this blocking setup, because if this cold air does get blocked for a while, for just a couple of days, the Euro even tries to cut it off completely from the flow, we may have something developing here in the Gulf states that may develop and may get pushed into that cold air. And that's when things can get interesting as we move into December. Now, what is fighting against that? Well, that would be perhaps the EPO, and I'll show you in a second. Here's a look at the GFS model, and it shows, again, this is that Sunday night Thanksgiving weekend where the snow catches up to it. Here's the problem, though, as we get into December. Look at the EPO is forecast to come back positive. That's going to be a really strong battle we're going to have to get any cold air again to get pushed all the way near the southeast corner of the country. So I think it's going to bump up against us and stop and then probably retreat again. But it's those times when it bumps up against us. If we have a storm system around or moisture around, then things get a little more interesting around here. But at this point, we have this battling our heads right now. I mean, yeah, the rest of the indicators are also against us as well. PNA is going positive. I mean, that's good. But look at the NAO, strongly positive, and then we don't pay attention to that for the WPO. But you see that at least right now the EPO is not in our favor for the cold air to really take over into December. Just glancing blows of it. But we got to watch it, because that is a classic setup I've seen many, many times. And Ron and I were just talking about this. You get that cold air that gets blocked and cut off, and somewhere across the Ohio Valley or the Midwest or even Central Plains, and then you get a southern low that develops in the southern track, then you get some very interesting low pressures that can develop, and sometimes some very strong low pressures because they're feeding off the warm waters off the Gulf and the Atlantic and the cold air. The combination could lead to some really impressive low pressures. So that would be the first week of December if that were to happen. It's beyond my range. That's why it's not on the board for today. But it may be there next week. We shall see. Have a good one.